Alrighty, hey everybody, how you doing? Steve here, and still a little bit under the weather, but we're going to continue on because this actually comes right into play with the importance of recovery and resistance training and recommended rest periods between sets, workouts. Are there different rest periods that are recommended for different types of goals like hypertrophy, strength, power, things, endurance? Those are all very good questions. So today, Warriors, what we're going to end up doing is taking a look at this, and as we embark on our journey for sculpting our bodies, being fit and healthy for the long run, what we're going to end up doing is we need to focus on recovery. And in the pursuit of our goals, whether that is power, whether that's strength or hypertrophy or endurance or a combination of those things, we need to understand the significance of recovery, and it is really important. So we're going to dive into resistance weight training and uncover the secrets of unlocking your full potential through the power of recovery and rest periods between sets, workouts, and some other things as well. So basically, recovery is the unsung hero. It ends up that most people go to the gym and they think, I'm going to the gym and this is what I'm doing and that's where I'm building the muscle. That's where I'm repairing muscle fibers, and it's not. Your actual muscle building and muscle repair happens in the time following your workout in the gym. And it's really interesting. You can put a ton of work in the gym, but if you shortchange yourself in regards to recovery, you're going to hamstring yourself when it comes to getting gains and working towards your goals. It might result in fatigue. It might result in a number of things that we'll go over, but it will definitely impede your ability to reach the goals that you want. And so we're going to look at recovery and see that it really is the linchpin that transforms our hard work into tangible gains. So we're going to talk about a few things here. Let me see if I can get some stuff up here, get kind of organized. We're going to talk about strength and hypertrophy training. Now, the rest periods in the optimal range. Now, there was a study in 2016, and it was called the Longer Interset Rest Periods Enhance Muscle Strength and Hypertrophy in Resistance-Trained Men. And this was by the author, the lead researcher, Brad Schoenfeld, to compare two resistance-trained groups with different rest intervals. Excuse me. So it ends up that one group had a 1-minute rest period while the other group used a 3-minute rest period. And the workouts were consistent between the two, and the program lasted a total of 8 weeks. So this is really interesting. It's more of a real-world situation, and they kept all the variables the same except for the rest periods being 1 minute and 3 minute. Now the results. The group that rested for 3 minutes resulted in greater increase in both muscular strength and hypertrophy when compared to the 1-minute rest period group. Let me say that again. The group that rested 3 minutes resulted in a greater increase in both strength and hypertrophy, in other words, muscle growth when compared to the 1-minute rest group period. That is huge in and of itself. To be able to see that. So for the people that are like, I'm focusing on strength and I'm focusing on muscle growth, hypertrophy, and I'm doing that, the old school 30 to 60 second rest period between sets, what you're not doing is allowing your central nervous system to recover. You're not allowing your body to recover so that you can recover some of the intensity that you can use on the following sets. And according to this research that has been done, and Schoenfeld is an awesome researcher. There's nothing questionable about his credentials. Excuse me. There's nothing questionable about his credentials or the studies, the numerous studies that he's done. So to come up with this, if you're wondering why you might be stagnating and seeing some plateaus, or you're not reaching your goals like you think you should be, it could be due to overtraining and you're not getting enough rest periods. So even between the amount of the rest periods between the sets that you do can have a vast improvement if you increase the rest periods. And that's why myself, I'll do 2 to 3 minute rest periods between sets to be able to regain that intensity, let the CNS reset, and I'm able to, get more gains than somebody who does one set, or definitely somebody that does more than a 1 minute rest period. So there are studies that show that multiple sets will bring about more strength and hypertrophy than single sets, with all things being equal. That has been done to death. But with this, to further tweak our routine and to get the most return or the bang for our buck, look at the rest periods that you have in between your exercises, and you can realize some gains that you couldn't get before by incorporating good recovery times. Let's see, what else do we got here? We're going to talk about power training. Power training. Now, this is a study that I found in March of 2016, and it was called The Effects of Different Interset Rest Intervals on Performance of Single and Multi-Joint Exercises with Near Maximal Loads. So what we're looking at is the differences between 1, 2, 3, and 5-minute rest intervals. So again, this research of looking at the amount of rest time when it comes to power training, which is, like powerlifting and things like that. I don't really get into that. But again, this just goes to show that rest periods between sets is very important. So the authors looked at 15 trained men who lifted for 8 sessions with 2 different exercises. And these exercises were machine chest flies and the bench press. The subjects trained near their maximal strength, performing 3 rep max loads for 5 sets. Now, the results of this was pretty interesting because they noted that at least 2 minutes rest was sufficient for the machine chest fly group, a single joint exercise, when performing the maximal weight. When performing near maximal load on bench press, the subjects responded best to a 3 to 5 minute rest. Now, again, this is in regards to power. Power is very different than strength. It's different than training for hypertrophy. But if you and your goal is to get more power, think about adding more time between your sets so that you can fully recover and get the max benefits of your training when you're doing that. Now, there's some other things that we're going to take a look at in regards to endurance training. Now, this was a study that was, let me see if I can put this up here because I don't have a graphic. Dun, 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 dun. We'll just throw this up here real quick. And that a study in 2009, rest interval between sets in endurance training. Study rest interval between sets and strength training, analyzed multiple rest intervals for strength training. So it ends up, I got a misprint here, but it ends up that with endurance training in this 2009 study, it ends up that the evidence is conflicting towards regards muscular endurance, as they note a few studies have highlighted that 20 seconds to 1 minute was sufficient. So let me throw that up there on the screen. That'll make things a little bit more clear. So when it comes to endurance training, and again, when we look at endurance training in regards to resistance training, there have been studies that have been done that show that the optimal amount of time for a repetition is 1 to 8 seconds. So in other words, well, actually, it's going to be more than 1 second, that you're going to have to lift the weight up. That's going to be 1 second, but no more than 10 seconds, because at 10 seconds, anything longer than 10 seconds, you're going to get a diminishing return on hypertrophy, and you're going to go into the endurance. And so that's where there is that cross that comes into play. So for people that do repetitions that are exceedingly long or more than 10 seconds and claim that it brings about more hypertrophy, that's not what the science-based facts and research shows, at least with double-blind studies. So anyway, with endurance training, it's really interesting that we see that there is a few studies have highlighted that 20 seconds to 1 minute is sufficient. So endurance training, muscular endurance training, cardio training, things of that nature. If you're doing multiple sets of cardio, rest from 20 seconds to 1 minute is something that you should look at. Now, another thing we're going to take a look at is rest positions. Now, the position in which you rest, does that matter? That's kind of an interesting question. I found this in a study of 2016 comparison of the effects of seated, supine, and walking interset rest strategies on work rate. And what they ended up doing is looking at the differences of these three rest positions and in between sets of lying down, seated, or walking. And the researchers recorded heart rate, respiratory rate, oxygen consumption, and as all these factors affects one state of rest. They found that the athletes who were laying down or seated produced more work and rested more efficiently than those who walked around. So again, if you're trying to tweak your routine and to get the most bang for your buck, walking around and trying to get extra steps to burn off more calories might not be beneficial when it comes to working and trying to get the optimal results from resistance training based on the position in which you rest. So I'll see a number of people at the gym that they're trying to get the gains that they want to get. And so they do a set and then they're walking around and they're doing some other, just walking around, and then they go right back and they do their next set. Well, this study shows that obviously if you lay down or sit down, you get a better recovery than you do when you're walking around. And you might be saying, that's kind of crazy. I mean, who's really going to go to that extreme? Well, there are some people that are trying to tweak their routines and their rest periods and their recovery to get the most efficient and effective workout that they can. So in that regard, the position in which you recover from, hey, it might be, I'm seriously considering at the military gym that I go to, they got these little kind of stool things that as soon as I'm finished with a set, I might just go sit down and do my recovery that way. If that improves my chances for getting better recovery and faster recovery for my next follow-on sets, then it's something I'm definitely going to try working out. So that's really interesting. Now, when we come to overtraining, this is something because when we talk about rest periods between our sets or rest periods between our workouts, what we're really trying to do is talk about recovery, and we're trying to combat overtraining. So overtraining is the enemy of any resistance training routine. The importance of recovery between workouts cannot be overlooked because we're looking for optimal results, whether we're training for power, for strength, hypertrophy, and or endurance. Now, there's a lot of different adverse effects when it comes to overtraining. And unfortunately, here in the United States and around the world, we get into health and fitness, we go to the gym and we work out, and then what we end up doing is we figure, well, I got these results, so I'm going to do more so I can get better results. But that can lead to a bunch of issues from plateauing in the progress. It also can increase your risk of injury. You can have persistent fatigue, decreased performance, mood disturbances, even insomnia in some cases, and that can be a threat to attaining our goals when our recovery and rest times are compromised. So basically what ends up is if we have chronic and constant stress on the body without adequate rest, the result is detrimental to the goals of which we want to attain. And it can even go so far that it can affect our immune system. It can cause hormonal imbalances, and again, that will hinder our fitness goals. So really what it comes down to, there is no one size fits all because there's a lot of variables that come into play. And so that's what we're going to talk about now is tailoring our recovery to our own experience levels. So in other words, novice lifters require more recovery time than seasoned lifters. Beginners often experience greater DOMS or delayed onset muscle soreness. because there's new stressors, there's new resistance, they're using muscles that they haven't used before or used in that manner of more resistance. And so they get this delayed onset muscle soreness. So there is more of a need for sleep, proper nutrition, and strategic rest days than for somebody who is more experienced. When you get to advanced lifters, often they don't require as much rest as new lifters, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't, have good recovery times as well. It should be noted that both novice and advanced lifters can fall prey to the more is better workouts at the expense of recovery, and thus it results in overtraining and some optimal results, plateaus, etc. The one thing that I see a lot on social media, and especially with over 40 groups and over 50, the seniors, is that they'll go and they'll get into health and fitness, they'll exercise, and they'll see some results, and they think, well, I'm going to go balls to the wall. Not having enough rest period is actually putting them in an overtraining state or overtraining syndrome state, and you're actually limiting the amount of gains that you can get. You're holding yourself back. And so, we need to understand, and with this information and the studies that we've gone over, we can incorporate good rest periods between our exercises to get the most bang for our buck. And then, for whether you're a beginning lifter or a seasoned lifter, there are definitely things to look out for. Now, another thing we're going to take a look at here is the recommended rest periods between workouts. So there's a study here that is effects of different between test rep intervals in reproducibility of the 10 repetition maximum load test, a pilot study in recreationally resistance trained men. Now, the reason that I like this study is that it is hitting recreational resistance. In other words, it's kind of like the DIY, the you and me, we go to the gym when we work out. This isn't some maximum lift, powerlifting, extreme athlete or professional athlete study. This is something that is more common to what we see with everyday folks. So anyway, it gives insight on the rest periods between workouts. So the researchers compared the effect of 24, 36, 48, 72 hour, and 96 hours of rest between sets on the good Lord, I can't even say that word, reproducibility, that's going to go in the blooper reel, of the 10 rep max for barbell squat, bench press, and leg press. So I like this study also for the fact that it uses exercises that a lot of normal gym people use, whether you're men or women. The researchers concluded that based on the findings, the optimal set or the optimal between test rest interval duration for 10 rep max testing to provide the best results in resistance trained men appears to be 48 to 72 hours for the barbell squat, the bench press, and leg press exercises. So again, this information gives us a range of how much rest we should have before workouts. Now, there are some other articles that I've seen where it talks about have 24 hours between your workouts, between muscle groups. You can absolutely do that. As long as you're not working as hard or as intense as some of these studies show, you can have a lower or shorter rest periods between your workouts. The one thing we do know is that regardless of what we are training, we need to have appropriate time to recover in order to get the maximum results. If it goes up to the 72, past 72 hours to 96 hours, there is no additional benefit of waiting that long of time. In other words, your body, whether, we're seeing that it's kind of like the average gym person, recreationally trained people, that 48 to 72 hours is the best time period. Anything after that, you're not getting anything by doing that. More rest is better. And again, this also comes into the muscle protein synthesis and the amount of workouts that you do per week, which comes into play. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, because what we end up seeing through the research is that you should work a muscle group to get the optimal results for strength, hypertrophy, all of those things, is 2 to 3 times a week. And if you stay within those guidelines, you're going to get the optimal results that these studies show that is possible. If you do anything less, you're going to get suboptimal results. You'll still get results. Like there are some people out there doing some wild and crazy, oh, you only need to work out once a week, or once every 10, 11 days, or some crazy stuff, trying to sell you a program, is saying that all of this rest is necessary because the mass amount of intensity that you put, and unfortunately the studies don't prove that to be true. So some people are selling you hype, other people are trying to inform you of science-based facts when it comes to training and how you can tweak your routine to get the best and the most efficient gains that you can with the time that you have, whether it is between your exercises and your sets, or whether it's between your workout as a whole. So yeah, there's a lot of information that we've gone over on this, and the one thing that we need to remember is that with this, recovery, sleep, nutrition all play a big part when it comes into recovery. And so with that being said, more is not always better in regards to workouts, because it should be balanced out with good recovery. So obviously, if you're putting way more intensity into your workouts, you're going to need a reasonable person would assume that you would need a little bit more time to recover. But definitely what we do know for the new people that are coming on board, doing a workout every single day, you're not going to have that recovery time that is needed for your body to relax, refresh, rebuild those torn muscle fibers, build new muscle fibers, and so on and so forth. So, as a general rule, I would say, about 48 hours. And again, it depends on the assessment of the individual. There's so many variables that come into play. Are we talking about somebody who's in their 20s, who is generally fit, that is in decent shape, but they just want to get rid of some body fat? Or are we talking about a senior who is advanced in age that doesn't have a lot of body mass, and there are more considerations because they're fighting osteoporosis or sarcopenia, their nutritional needs? All of these things come into play. So to make a blanket statement and say, oh, everybody needs to rest for this amount of time, if somebody tells you that, and that applies to everybody, that is a huge red flag. And that shows that they don't understand the complexity or the variables that entailed in regards to resistance weight training, to recovery, lifter experience, nutrition, all of these things, recovery, sleep. There could be medical conditions that a person has that also can contribute to the effects of your recovery, of whether it's efficient or not. There's just a whole lot of things that come into play. But through this, I think we looked at enough information to show that recovery is very important. And for me personally, in my workout routine, I work out 3 days a week, 3 or 4 days a week, depending on what I'm doing. And with that being said, I'll rest between sets for 2 to 2.5 minutes. Of course, then I kind of base my workout routine on multiple sets. And with that multiple sets, I'm going to need a little bit more recovery time between the sets, as we've seen in these studies, to regain some of that intensity so I can get more hypertrophy, so I can get more strength gains than single sets, which has been proven to be true with thousands of people. So I will increase the amount of my rest periods to compensate and to be able to recover from the intensity of the workouts that I put in. And again, that's another variable that comes into play. If you operate at such a high intensity, you're going to need more time to recover between sets to get the optimal growth in strength and hypertrophy. So there's a lot of different variables that come into play when we're talking about recovery, and it's just not a quick, little copy-paste blurb that one can spit out and make a stereotypical statement or a blanket statement saying this is the only amount of rest that you need. it shows really the ignorance of the person who's making that statement, that the rabbit hole goes a lot deeper than what they know. And if somebody is a personal trainer that is stuck on stupid and says, this is how it should be because of my personal results, and they don't take into account any science-based information or studies or meta-analysis that prove otherwise, I would look for a new personal trainer. That's just my personal opinion. I want science-based training that is proven to work. I don't want this off-the-wall hype of, oh, you can get it done better, faster, cheaper, in less time, blah, 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 or you don't have to work out as much in the gym. You only got to do a couple times a week, with single sets on a body part because that's optimal. Studies show that that's not the case. But cheaper, faster, and less work and time and energy, and with the promise of getting those high results, that's the hook that con men will sell you. And there's a lot of con men in the realm of health and fitness, and I just want you all to be aware of that. So with that being said, there is a disclaimer, and I'm going to finish this up with a disclaimer. I have trained a lot of people. I don't train people for money. I just do it as I can, and I'm retired, so I have other things that I like to do. But over my years, I've helped quite a number of people. And I like science-based training and factual evidence with double-blind studies because it shows that those things actually work. And so I actually back up what I do with these studies, and I incorporate this into routines or into nutrition plans and so on and so forth, so that, I'm not grasping at straws. To get fit and in shape, you're going to have to put in the time and energy. So when the people say, 60, 90 days, or you only have to work out a couple days a week to get the optimal amount of age-strong fitness, muscular growth, whatever bullshit, they're selling you a wolf ticket. And this is all based on the studies. And the con men that sell the routines like this, and there's a number of them on the interwebs and on socials. Recently I did a video where a guy who was a personal trainer that he said that there was only one muscle in the human hand, and it was vestigial. In other words, it was a worthless leftover of the product of evolution over time. And I'm like, seriously? And this guy went to college. This guy got a degree. He got his certification to be a personal trainer, and he owns his own gym. You can't make this up. So if somebody says that they're a personal trainer, it doesn't mean that they're a good personal trainer. It doesn't mean that they remembered what they studied. This guy went to college. There's a number of people. There's even people with PhDs who have, that is a huge achievement, but they're stuck on stupid and they make some wild, baseless claims. And that's why I like science-based evidence when it comes to health, fitness, and nutrition. So anyway, I just wanted to put this out there for free. I have no dog in this hunt because I don't charge anybody anything. I help people from time to time, but it's not that often anymore because I'm retired, and I'm enjoying the life with the wife here overseas. But I still want to give this information out to help people on their journey to lessen the learning curve when it comes to reaching their health and fitness goals. All right, so anyway, there's the information. It's all there, and there's even more. This isn't an all-inclusive video with all of the studies. I mean, there's tons more. But this is to give you an idea that recovery is important, and if you want to build muscle and you want to build strength or power or whatever it is, your goal that you're trying to attain, you need to have the proper recovery. Overtraining is a thing, and I've experienced that during my time in the military. Thankfully, I had been through classes to where I ended up being a physical fitness instructor as part of my duties in the military with people that couldn't pass their physical fitness tests, that were overweight. So I got additional nutrition training to bring those people into compliance, to lose the weight, to meet and exceed the standards, and they were able to stay in the military, retire, and enjoy all the benefits that they could over a 20-year career. And I continue to do that now, even in my retired state. So anyway, I hope this helps out. And for those of you, look up the effects of overtraining and really look at what you're doing. And if you're reaching plateaus and you're feeling that fatigue and you're not attaining those goals that you once were, recovery might be something to take a look at, whether it's in between your sets or in between your workouts. All right, so that's it. We'll see you on the next video. Peace. Yeah, overtraining, it's a thing. It is.